Welcome, Professor Kutkwitzer, Partho, and Pavan Goyal. I think we should
I
sit
can hear
on
you on the
this.
live stream, yes.
Okay, thank you,
So-
thank you. So we sincerely apologize for the extreme delay, but let's at least get started. So I'll request Ambaji to take up.
Welcome, Professor Kutkwitzer, Partho, and Pavan Goyal. Hello.
Thank you. So we sincerely apologize for the extreme delay, but let's at least get started. So I'll request Ambaji to take up.
What is happening? Welcome, Professor Kutkwitzer, Partho, and Pavan Goyal. Hello.
Thank you. So we sincerely apologize for the extreme delay, but let's at least get started. So I'll request
Hello. Will you please mute your live stream, Professor Kut and Partha, because we are getting echo. Hello. Please mute your live stream, but at the same time we should. Yeah. Thank you. So we have here. No, we want to be in the frame.
Yeah, so
We will sit here. So, Pavan, please sit here. Please. So the panel is on AI and Sanskrit, or Sanskrit and AI. With the chat GPT, and today we also saw the presentation by the group of Kutkwitzer, Sebastian and others on the translation from Sanskrit to English, where the translation, at the same time the morphological analysis and various other grammatical features were provided. So we were very much amazed by the technology, the use of technology, and we would like to know from each of you, because all three of you are working in the field of AI. And Partha, I do not know about you, but Kurt and Pavan, both of them are definitely working on Sanskrit and AI. And I think Partha is passionate about Sanskrit, as I know, and you are in the AI. So from all the three of you, we would like to know what are your views regarding AI and Sanskrit. I would first request Kurt to start the discussion, and you will get 5 to 7 minutes for this. Hello. Can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Yeah. So Kurt, I request you to start your presentation. You will have 5 to 7 minutes.
Okay. And can you hear me fine? If you could just nod? Okay, great. I'll just present in this way. So yes, as Amba mentioned, you heard a bit about this before. And just to get us all on the same page, I'm using a very liberal notion of Gen AI, basically anything which has a language model of some sort, a neural net in the middle. GPT-4, of course, is at the extreme. It receives a prompt, and it generates some output, as you see here. And we can see on the left here that, let's see, I'm actually seeing a bit of a delay in my slides here. That I cannot account for. You're not seeing the slides advance here.
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, we can
just
see.
Yeah, okay. We can see there's a bit of a chicken and the egg problem. There's lots of things to which we believe we could apply Gen AI technologies, DSANDI, sentence segmentation, lemmatization, morphosyntactic tagging. These have been issues addressed by this community for some time, as well as going further into machine translation and semantic search. But the challenge is to apply Gen AI methods, we need training data. And I just have estimates on the right here of the amount of training data, individual examples we would need for these in the hundreds of thousands to perhaps millions. And it's hard to imagine how we'll achieve these without some sort of automation. However, we in our group have a great debt to Oliver Helwig's work available at GitHub today, open source, where he has basically training data that allows us to work on desanding, lemmatization, and morphosyntactic tagging, and he has in total 600,000 examples. Now, I do want to also acknowledge, given this community, that there are many other contributors to this, from Professor Goyal, Gerard Huet, Amba, yourself, and so forth. But this is just the data that we're using. But even with Oliver's data, we still need additional sentence pairs of data in the form of sentence pairs for machine translation. And I know we're short on time, but I just wanted to shout out, we've assembled a team of student volunteers here, basically from high school students from around the country at Berkeley. And we have a team led by Jivnesh Sandan in IT Kharagpur that has also been helping us. And all together, very briefly, using basically the Sanskrit texts that have been available to us in Unicode and PDF format, as well as the English translations in similar formats. We have some automated alignment here in the using our own technology of vector alignment, and altogether we have been able to produce about 718,000 Sanskrit English sentence pairs, which are the core of our system. Now, we use these 718,000 sentence pairs to then train or fine-tune, is probably more accurate, models. We use one, hat tip to Google here, the MATLAB 400 model, which has been pre-trained on a number of languages, and also the Meta No Language Left Behind model. And those together, with about 160 GPU hours of training, and on these sentence pairs, of which this is an example here, we produce the Mitra system. Now, in my more extended version, I went in much more detail in terms of the limitations of the system, but today let me just abbreviate that. In terms of the limitations of our current system, we have a relatively small number of sentence pairs compared to other higher resource languages. Perhaps more importantly, the training data is uncurated, the translation quality and time period varies widely, and our language models we're using are relatively on the small size of those, from 1 to 3 billion, and therefore we rely on external or generic Gen AI tools for fluency and topical concept. So what this does in a result is kind of serve up what you might call a stew of various translations. Basically, just all this training data is tossed in together. It's not a concise and coherent recipe, and we hope that perhaps this can be addressed with later more sophisticated processing. In my longer version of this talk, I went on about many much more fundamental limitations that we might see from machine translation of Sanskrit. But let me just summarize that by saying these are precisely the same limitations that are faced by human translators who are translating Sanskrit as well. So just to quickly summarize, and to try to give some sense from at least my perspective, what we can reasonably hope from machine translation and Gen AI. So I would say in terms of translation, we're going to get far from a finished translation. A machine translation gives us something of a good hypothesis. The basic morphology and sentential structure are worked out. And I believe from our experience with other low resource languages, this should make translators more productive. This will help produce rough translations, which allow experienced scholars to quickly navigate through unfamiliar literature. And these also allow scholars with limited Sanskrit to identify most relevant passages in Sanskrit. Personally, I'm excited. I think I'm probably unique in this audience as having probably the least Sanskrit skills of everyone here. So for me, I'm excited about the potential for this as a good support for language learners in their first few years of learning Sanskrit, and to enable us to choose literature to explore rather than rely on particular readers, such as London's readers and so forth. Looking more to the future, perhaps for another conference where we believe that Gen AI technology can be used to help with semantic search, discourse analysis, and stylochronometry, and other types of stylistic analysis. Just to flash again, it wasn't very easy to see in Sebastian Nerdick's earlier talk. This is a cut up of a screenshot of the actual execution of our tool. So we have on the left here a simple passage from Shiva Sutras in Sanskrit, and then we have on this the morphological analysis and translation on the right. And this is what I wish I had had 50 years ago. When I first tried to learn Sanskrit, I could have put Nal and Damayanti aside and really studied something I was interested in. So just to quickly conclude, to kind of give us our own report card in terms of how we're doing in applying Gen AI, what I have here is basically a hierarchy of different techniques for applying large language model technology and Gen AI technology in levels of sophistication. And as simple as our systems are, and I'm happy to go to maybe more detail on this perhaps in the panel, I think we're already with this fine-tuning using relatively sophisticated methods, but there's still more that we can use, and in particular the potential for using retrieval augmented systems or RAG systems. I did just want to end by saying what I'm showing here is actually a much more production system that we have done for the Tibetan language, where we have 2 million Tibetan English sentence pairs. And I have to say, from a distance, I'm fascinated. The Tibetan worldwide population is only 6.7 million people, and yet they've been able to preserve pretty much, and preservation of the Dharmic literature has practically no support in their homeland of China. And yet Tibetans have managed to digitize and make online the majority of their literature of 60,000 volumes. And moreover, there are over 300 Tibetans today engaged in gathering training data. So my answer, or my question to the audience is, broadly in the broader community, is can we do something similar for Sanskrit literature? I was able to catch some of the earlier talks where I'm very happy to see a vision of where we'll see 2 million scans online. That sounds very exciting. I'd also love to see training data of millions of sentences. And I'm posing the same question or this same challenge to Vivek Raghavan, the CEO of Sarvam AI, which is something of the evolution of Bhashani. Thank you very much.
Now, I will not ask questions at this point in time. I would now request Parth to present his views.
Amba, I'm having a bit of trouble.
Hello?
Could you hold the microphone a bit closer? Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me now?
I can hear you better now, yes.
Oh, okay. So thank you very much. And now I would invite Partha to present his views. And after all the three panelists present their views, we will have questions from the audience. And then we will have the discussions among ourselves. So Partha, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Amba, and thanks for the organizers. Thanks to the organizers for having me. So I don't have any slides, so I can just kind of like verbally present maybe my thoughts. Yeah, so I mean, first disclaimer. I mean, I think I beat Kurt on at least one aspect, which is like the knowledge of Sanskrit, which is like 0 for me, and it will be like hard to go below that. So please ignore my ignorance here. So, I mean, AI and Sanskrit, I mean, I kind of, maybe we can think of it in like two terms. So one is like what AI can do for Sanskrit. And I think with the availability of multimodal language models involving like, say images, text and all, which are kind of, and more progress happening in that direction. So I'm like more and more optimistic about those kind of models helping with like digitization type of efforts, especially for Sanskrit, which has been like a problem. And then also not only on the digitization, but also on the search kind of aspects that that Kurt mentioned. And then also for various types of Sanskrit NLP tasks, where maybe with these kind of language models, we can cut down on the amount of supervision and the annotated data that's needed to achieve certain tasks. So that's kind of like what the advancements in LLMs, and in particular multimodal LLMs, can do for Sanskrit and Sanskrit NLP. On the other direction, kind of like what can Sanskrit do for AI? So I have been looking at problems of more inclusion, linguistic inclusion in particular in large language models, and how we can make language models work for many, many languages around the world. So at Google, we have a mission called 1,000 Languages Moonshot, and a lot of the work that we do in the Bangalore, in the India lab is focused on, say, in the Indian context, how we can maybe scale these language models to 100 plus languages in the Indian context. So one of the things that I'm particularly keen on is say Sanskrit as kind of like a central language for many of the Indic languages. So if you are able to increase, say, more representation of Sanskrit data in these kind of language models, could it have say some positive transfer effect, not only to do better for Sanskrit, but then also for many of the other low resource languages for which we may not have as much of data. So that's kind of positive transfer starting from pre-training or fine-tuning with Sanskrit data. So it was good to see the work that Kurt mentioned, and I'd love to know more about that. So I think that's kind of one other aspect that I'm curious about, of say how Sanskrit could help with linguistic inclusion in the AI context. Yeah. So I think I'll stop here and look forward to discussing more in the rest of the panel. Thanks.
Thank you, Parth, for very insightful suggestions regarding Sanskrit, use of Sanskrit for AI. And
but we can, at least I can barely hear you.
Can you hear me now? Is it okay?
Just barely. If there's got to be a way to improve your microphone situation.
Hello, can you hear me now? Is it okay?
Just barely, but I guess that's the situation.
Okay. So, Parth, thank you very much for your comments, both the use of LLMs for Sanskrit as well as use of Sanskrit for AI in general for Indian languages. And we will come back to you. And now I would invite Dr. Pawan to present his views.
Right, am I audible? Yeah. So hi Kurt, hi Partha, good to see you online. Yeah. I hope you can hear me. So thanks for giving the intro about the Gen AI to the audience. So I prepared more generically about AI and Sanskrit, and actually Partha already mentioned another view. I had two views about it. What we can do using AI for Sanskrit, and what can AI do for Sanskrit? I mean, what can Sanskrit do for AI? So I also had thoughts on both the directions, and going about from the research papers, I think one of the first papers that we saw was from Rick Briggs on how Sanskrit can be used for AI. That was more like the meta language of Nyaya can be used for knowledge implementation for the text, and this can be a very good technique for AI. But now going about what can AI do for Sanskrit. So over the last few years, right? I remember when my time as a student, I was always looking for some data on which we can build some models. And with the help of Oliver Helbig, for example, we got this data. We started working on problems led to analysis of Sanskrit. So we had worked on problems on segmentation, dependency parsing, compound analysis. Like there were simple works like metrical analysis, anaphora. So a lot of institutes, had developed data on dependency parsing and all, especially Professor Kulkarni's institute and many other institutes had done work on that. So a lot of work had gone on synthesis, also on the analysis part of Sanskrit, but not so much effort was put on the generation part. So that's where Kurt mentioned about the translation work, where generation